For real though, I never saw a sequel for this movie coming. I really didn't. Like, after you try to kill your bosses, like, where do you go from there? Where? What's going on, everybody? It's the Granddad Woolly, and you are here again for another edition of Woolly Reviews Film Data. We got a movie review today, and we're going to be talking about a new comedy that just dropped. It's a sequel to a popular movie that came out a few years back, and let's holler at it because it's getting that attention. Horrible Bosses 2. Yes, another sequel. Now, Horrible Bosses 2 is the sequel to the original 2011 Horrible Bosses movie that starred Jason Bateman, Charlie Day, and Jason Sudeikis. They starred as three friends who all work for these terrible bosses, and they came up with this horrible plan to kill all their bosses, and let's just say the shit didn't really work out. So fast forward 3 years later, now we got a sequel, and in this movie, it starts off with them actually starting their own company, and they're actually trying to become their own bosses. Now, they're looking for a company to invest into their new product they made called a shower buddy, which is something that you use, it's kind of like an all-in-one shower system that helps you, you can take a shower better. So they find this company that's willing to invest in them, and they think that they're on their way until the guy who runs the company ends up screwing them over and ends up causing them to lose their company. So now they are out of business, out of power, out of money, everything like that. So they got to find a way to save their company and all the employees and all the stuff that they hired and got to be able to get their money back because they're in severe debt now. So then they come up with another crazy plan to kidnap the son of the guy who they got the investment from, or were supposed to get the investment from, and, hold them for ransom so they can get all their money back. Lo and behold, the son is actually, wise enough to figure out what's going on because these guys aren't the smartest guys in the world. And he actually wants to come up with a plan to actually go along with the kidnapping, but actually be a part of it so he can get a cut of the money. So what ensues is a crazy, kidnapping plot that, shows all the guys trying to figure out how they're going to, get the money and, come up with this crazy elaborate plan. And these guys just don't have a clue of what to do. And, they're trying to just, get their money back because all in all, they just want to save their company and, save their families or whatnot. But everything that they end up going through just makes things worse and worse. So that's pretty much the basic summary and plot of the movie. Now, let's talk about the fact that, is it funny? Well, for the most part, it is funny. It's got a lot of funny parts. These guys, Charlie Day, Jason Bateman, Jason Sudeikis, they have real good chemistry on camera together. From the first Horrible Bosses, they did really good. And they carried that over pretty good on this one. A lot of the jokes here do work, and some of them, for the most part, don't work. It's kind of like hit and miss. It's like, shot in the dark. Sometimes they kind of rely on the whole argumentative parts where they all kind of argue with each other, and, they have these, one-liners and whatnot. Some of them are real funny, and some of them just aren't. And that's kind of the thing that kind of, makes the movie like, a little bit of a, wishy-washy at times. On top of that, I feel like the movie, plot isn't as strong as the first Horrible Bosses movie because what it does is it kind of flips, the whole theme on its head, where in the first Horrible Bosses, these three guys actually worked for terrible bosses. Now, in this movie, really, if you think about it, they're the horrible bosses because they actually built this company, hired all these people, and then, before the actual, money started to come in, they, lost the company, and then now they have to find a way to save this business and, save their employees because in turn they become terrible bosses because they have bad business sense. So that's the way that I kind of flipped it, but in a way, I don't think that it made it a strong enough plot for me personally to really, carry it on as well as the first one. Now, another thing about the movie that is more on the positive side is they actually reprised a lot of the roles from the first one that was really, known. They got pretty much all the original people from the first Horrible Bosses to come over. Jamie Foxx is back as Motherfucker Jones. They got, Jennifer Aniston back as the dentist who worked for Charlie Day's character who was, like sexually harassing him like every day. And they also brought back Kevin Spacey, whose character is now in prison. If you watch the first Horrible Bosses, you'll see why. And they actually go to him for advice when they figure out that their company's been taken over by this, corrupt business guy. And he's the business guy is played by Christoph Waltz, and his son is played by Chris Pine. So, they got a lot of, good actors and, good talent here to come back and actually enter some new talent here. But I think just the movie in general, it's funny, but it's not like crazy funny. It's a decent funny, it's like you don't get your laughs here and there. Some jokes are really, really good. It starts off really, really strong, but then once it hits that middle ground to close to the end of the movie, it kind of slows down. but the ending is, it does kind of pick up a little bit around the end, but not too much to, it's really salvaged, that middle part where it kind of slows down and bogs down. So for the most part, Horrible Bosses 2 is a decently funny movie. I say it's a good, one-time watcher. I mean, you'll get your laughs here and there, but I don't think it's something that's gonna, have that longevity factor, of one of those classic type, top-level comedy movies. I honestly believe that the first Horrible Bosses is better than this one. I think the plot was stronger, and I think that the jokes were a little bit funnier. This one here was written well, it was done well, but just not as good as the first one. And I could watch it once and be done with it, and that's pretty much my opinion on it. So my final verdict, I'm not saying that Horrible Bosses 2 for the most part is just a decent comedy movie. Yeah, there's some good jokes in here and there, some that aren't so good, and for the most part it just kind of drags along around the middle. All I'm saying is that plot-wise, it's not as strong as the first one. Joke-wise, they're good, but not as good as the first one. I found myself laughing more at the first movie than this one. And I think they just held a little bit too much onto the argumentative points between all three friends. That's kind of like how they, built most of their funniness out of it, is just with them arguing with each other and conflicting with each other. And after a while, it gets kind of old. But hey, nothing more other than that to say about the movie. It is, for the most part, a decent, funny movie, a good one watcher. So I have to say, personally, for me, that Horrible Bosses 2 is not Granddad approved, but it is Granddad recommended. So if you want to, go ahead and check it out. It's in the theaters now. Like I said, you'll get some laughs out of it. You may enjoy it more than I did. I'm saying I didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't the greatest funny movie I've ever seen in my life. I've seen funnier movies lately, and this just doesn't, live up to those. But hey, Horrible Bosses 2, it's a decent movie, so go check it out if you want to get a quick laugh, alright? Granddad recommended. Flip it. Alright guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Make sure you give me a thumbs up and drop a comment. Tell me what you think of Horrible Bosses 2 if you've seen it. If you haven't seen it and you want to go check it out, check it out. Let me know what you think. It's a good one watcher in my opinion, but you may get more funny out of it than me. Also, previous videos on the side as well as my new single. Go ahead and check those out. Show them some love. And as always, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, Instagram. Links in the description below. And hit that subscribe button. Button on the screen, button below. Hit either one. Woolly Reviews, twice a week. You know what it is, and that's what you got to do. Hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. We going into Christmas season, and we got more reviews coming for the holidays. That's what we got to do, all right? So until next time, I take my leave. Granddad, Horrible Bosses 2. I'm out of here.